Welcome to this week's Code Stack Meetup. I'm Matthew Mendoza, and I'm holding the intermediate session. Today we'll be covering how to build an in-depth web application with JavaScript and APIs. And today we'll be using the NASA API. If you're watching this video, if you can, go to this website, go ahead and generate your key. Once you have that, go ahead and proceed with the video and should get rolling. Anyways, we'll be looking at the docs that are down below. We see that NASA offers a lot of useful endpoints to look at different information regarding space. But today we will be looking at one of them, and that being the Mars rover photos. As we can see, there's a lot of information to kind of play with. They have two different tables or two different filters, or two different endpoints that take different types of information in terms of like what day you're looking for photos on. One has sols and then one has Earth date. For the sake of this session, we'll just be using Earth date. Just to kind of go over the information and just to show what we get from this API endpoint. I'm gonna go and toss it here into Postman. If you don't have Postman, it's a very useful tool if you ever wanted to check out information you get back from APIs. But anyways, I'm gonna go and grab my API key. I'm gonna go and slap it in here. And as we can see, one second. We can see that now we're given a whole array of information all in regards to photos. We get the sol date, we get a camera object that has some information, including the name of the camera that was used to take the picture, rover ID, the full name of the camera. We also have an image source, a URL to show our images once we get around to showing that on our website, date, and then we also have some information on the rover, such as name and some other information, and it's including its status. Moving on, we'll go ahead and move on to the project itself. So let me go ahead and do a live server to show what it looks like right now. Right now it's pretty empty, but for the goal of today, we will be trying to display the images onto the website, as well as some other information. So first things first, before I get the URL into a variable, I want to go ahead and go over the function and lead into that. So first off, we're going to go ahead and actually, before I even start that, there's usually two ways of going about doing API calls in JavaScript. There's usually the XML HTTP request, and then there's a fetch API request. For the sake of this session, we will be going over the fetch API, as that is a lot more efficient, easier to set up. And to do so, we're going to create a function. Before we describe our function, we're going to do an async function. And an async function is a function that happens independently as the computer reads all the code. So think of it as your computer is reading your code, it will begin to split into reading two things. It'll run two different functions. And we're going to go and call this async function a fetch function. And we're going to go and give this a parameter of URL. And for a time being, we're going to go and leave this blank for now. One of the best ways when you're working with APIs, I'm going to go and jump into creating the URL, but however, we're going to do things a little bit differently. We're going to go and split into three parts. We're going to have the usual API, the beginning part of an API. So we'll just be pulling the HTTPS API nasa.gov. So the name of this variable is just going to be API name. And like I said, we'll go and pull that first part of the API. It would just be the HTTPS nasa.gov. And then for our next part, we're going to have the API endpoint. And the reason that we want to have it like this is that, say, if you're working with multiple endpoints, that it'll be easy to kind of interchange the pieces, or say if you're working with multiple calls, it'll be a lot easier to make fixes, like say if the URL changes or like the name of the API changes, it'll be easier to fix. Also, it does reduce a lot of typing. So we'll go and insert endpoint right there. That's going to be the first slash before Mars. And then we're going to end it at page 1. And then for the last part, we're going to put our API key. We'll call that API key for the variable. And also you want to go and actually, let me go and type this one out, because what we want to do is we want to put an API underscore key equal to, and then I'm going to go and grab my key real quick, and I'll go and insert that there. All right, now that we have that, let's go and head back to our async function. So when it comes to a fetch function, first thing, the first thing that we want to do is we want to go and create a variable. We'll make it a constant variable. We'll call it response. And then we're going to have this equal await fetch URL. And basically what's happening here is that this is the beginning part. This is where we make our call. And what await does in this case is that until we get a response from this URL or from this API, it'll kind of stick around at this point in this async function. And if we were actually to look at this, do like a console log, log, our response, if you're to go to your inspect, we should, I wonder why it's not showing up. Oh, because we haven't even called it yet. That's right. My apologies. So let's go and call our function real quick. Fetch function. And here we're going to do API name plus API endpoint plus API key. So it's going to build out our whole entire URL. So now we go ahead and head to the console log. We'll see we have a response object. And then here we have some stuff going on. We have the, for the OK, we have that as true. That means that our URL is usable. And the thing is that the response object usually gives you all the information in case, maybe the call failed or whatnot. And to kind of show an example of that, I'm going to go ahead and mess up my URL. We'll go ahead and take a look at the response. As you can see, OK is now false. We get a status 404, and the text says not found. That's because this URL didn't exist. But we put it back, everything's back to normal. Now that we have that out of the way, before we actually, with response object, you can't access the data to this, and I know that's something that we want. But to do that, we need to do another part. But before we do that, we need to do an if statement, because we want to check if our response is .ok before we start grabbing our information. This is just to reduce any type of errors. And in this case, if it's OK, we want to go and activate another variable. We're called this JSON data. And the reason I call it this is that what we're going to do is we're going to take our response and we're going to run it through a JSON method. And it's going to run through the same thing as wait. It's going to go in and try to fetch that information. And then as soon as it's done with that, then it's going to move on to the next part. Does anybody have any questions so far? Am I going a little bit too fast?
Hey, I got a question.
What's up?
Hey, so why do we break up the API URL and the endpoint and the key? Like, well, what's the purpose of that?
So the purpose of that is like, say if you're like, if you have multiple endpoints, you don't want to keep re-entering that URL, correct? Like every single time.
When you
Or
when you say
something.
when you say endpoint, like what do
Oh.
you mean exactly though? Like,
Oh, okay, sorry. It's going a little bit too fast to thought. So an endpoint is pretty much it's basically like a specific function that we're accessing from the API. Think of it like that. So kind of how we let's call it, I'm going to create a random function. We'll call it do thing, and the API has something similar to this function. And once you guys get into more API stuff, like when you guys are doing it in C#, you'll do stuff like this, and how you access this function by an API would be like this, and you just pass in information, kind of like how this API looks here. As you see, we have photos, and then we have Earth date, and then we'd pass in the variable, whatever the date is, and it'll go through that function. And when you're working with APIs, there's going to be different endpoints, each one doing its own thing. So by splitting it into multiple parts, it'll make things a lot easier to kind of fix. And especially if maybe you want to switch out your API key or something like that. You don't want to go all over your project.
right.
And go and switch over. Just have it to a variable.
Just have it a variable by itself, and then just switch. Yeah. Okay. I think
switch it out.
Yeah.
It just kind of makes things easier in the long run when you're building projects.
Cool.
Does anyone have any other questions? All right. So now we want to go ahead and move on to the next step. But first, we're going to go and do another if statement, because we saw that we were returning an array from this API call, and to make sure that we don't run into errors in the future, or at least reduce our type of errors, we want to check if the data that we're receiving is an array. Because in the end, we're going to iterate through this information. And if it's if we're returning just a single object that's not an array, that could cause issues in your project. But anyways, so we're going to go create an if statement. We're going to do an array, and is array, and then we're going to do JSON data dot photos. And I apologize for not kind of going over that. Let me go and console log this real quick to kind of just show what's kind of going on and what JSON data looks like. So let me go and comment this out real quick. So once we run our response through JSON, we're then returning another object which has photos, which is the data that we are looking for. Then it has a prototype, but we don't want that, so we want to go ahead and navigate to just photos. So let me go ahead and comment this real quick for our if statement. And what we want to do is we want to do JSON data photos. And this is basically that we're kind of just navigating through that information. You just pull photos, and I'll go ahead and show in the console log as well. So now we just have our array of information. And since it passes this little if statement, we can go ahead and move on to our next part, which is we're going to go ahead and iterate through the information. But for actually, I'll go and run through the way that we're going to go and iterate. Then we'll go and run through another function. So I'm going to do things a little bit differently. Have you guys worked with iterators before? Like other than like a for loop?
Nah.
Ooh, I'm about to show you guys something really interesting. So what I love about JavaScript, it has these really cool iterator functions, and one of them is called for each. So you know how when you're trying to iterate through like an array or something like that, you create a for loop, and then you can iterate through the information using like the index. Well, in this one, you can kind of get past all that. So let me go and show you real quick. So for each. And basically this method is just going to go through every single object that's in the array. And then we can pass in the individual item through a parameter, and we're going to go and call this photos. It can be any name that you want it to be. And I implore you to kind of look more into this, as iterator functions or methods are very interesting and very useful in future projects. So we're going to do an arrow function. So after this, we can go and enter, actually, I'll go and make this a little bit simpler. I'm going to go and do a curly bracket. Now we're going to enter into our function. I'm going to do a quick console log of our information to make sure that everything's working. As we can see, we're seeing the individual objects from the array popping up in our console log. So that means that works. But now is, well, what's the purpose? Or, how are we going to, what are we going to do with this? Well, now we want to go and start displaying our items. But since we're working with JavaScript, we're going to have to create our elements via JavaScript. So let me go and delete this for now. And I'm going to go and create a new function. And this function is going to be called display data. And we're going to go and give it a parameter of data. So in this, we're going to do some element creation. And how you do this is that we're going to go and create a variable. We're going to call this image column. For this project, we are using Bootstrap 5. So we're going to be using the grid system for this. So for image column, this is what's going to hold our image. So we're going to do document dot create element. And then we do parentheses, then quotes, and then we're going to put div. And basically what this is saying is that it's going to go and it's going to insert a div element into this variable. And also, since we want it to be a grid, we're going to do image.column.class name. And then we're going to go and insert our CSS class. We're going to do column-12. And let me go and mark this as image, because we're going to be working with, I just try to keep everything separate. And so now for our next part, we're just going to have our image variable. And this one's going to hold our image element. So we're going to do document.create element. Then we're going to make this one an image. But the thing is, when you're creating elements like this, they don't have their exact attributes. So you do have to create those attributes. And to do so, we're going to do img, and then we're going to do set attribute. Then we're going to insert src. That's going to be the name of our attribute that we're going to attach to it. And then in this next part, we're going to take data. And in this case, we're going to be passing in photo and from our for each method into this. So we can actually navigate through the information. So let me go and pull up my Postman real quick. And our goal is to get img source. So I'm going to go and copy that. So what we're going to do is we're going to do data in the next part, dot img source, just like how it shows up in the API call. So now that we have that, I'm also going to put on a quick class. This is just to make it fluid. So as soon as it pops up, things won't get all that messed up. And we're just going to put img-fluid. And then we're going to do max height, which that's already a CSS class that I have in my styles file. We don't have to worry about that. And now what we're going to go and do is we're going to go and put that image inside that column. So we're going to do img call dot append child. This is how you put elements inside of each other, or append them as a child. And now that we have that together, we can go and move on to our text. So now, of course, we're going to do another text column. We can go and just copy this, put that into here, and we're going to remove img, and we're just going to put text. And then you can also copy this as well and do the same thing. Now that we have our column set up, now we can actually start writing our text. So now we're going to do let camera. This is going to be what type of camera was this picture caught on. So I'm going to do document create element seeds, and then we're going to make it an H2. And then we're also going to go and edit our inner text. Camera type inner text equals. Then we're going to do we're going to put view. This is just to kind of add a label to our information. And then for this next part, we're going to have to go and iterate. I mean, we're going to have to navigate through two objects. So we're going to do data. And let's see over here. So we're going to do camera, and then we're going to do full name. So we'll go and follow that path. Dot full name. And before we go any further, does anyone have any questions in regards to navigating through information from the API? Right. So anyways, moving on forward, what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to go ahead and copy this and paste it 2 more times. For this variable right here, we're going to go ahead and call it we're going to call it rover name. And this is just going to be the name of the rover that took the picture. And this one's going to be different. To get to this one, we're going to go and navigate through rover, and then we're going to go through name. So it's going to be data rover and then name. Then for the next part, we're going to go and call this one rover status. Just thought we'd go and keep checks on how our rovers are doing. And then for this, right, and then we're going to go and put all these text within the text column. So we're going to do text call dot append child. Then we're going to go and insert camera type for this first one. Copy and paste that 2 more times. And then just go ahead and put in your other variables. And I forgot to change camera type here. Now that's correct. And also for these labels right here, we'll just go and call it rover or rover name. And we'll just call this one status. Now that we have that together, now go and put together the pieces. So for this, what I want to do is that in my HTML, I want to display my information in here. But to do that, we're going to go ahead and grab we're going to grab this div element by its ID. So we're actually going to go ahead and go up here. I'm going to place this wherever, but we're going to do get data inject equals document dot get element by ID, and we're going to go by the ID of data inject. Now that we have our element, now we're going to do like we did above when we did append child, except now we're going to append these columns to the data inject. So do the same thing. We'll go ahead and do data inject dot append child, and we're going to append it to, we're going to append image column first because we want our image to show up on top. Copy and paste that, and then we'll go ahead and put our text column at the bottom. Now that we have this set up, now we can go and take our function, and we're going to go ahead and put this in our for each method. And so basically what we're doing is that for every item that's in the array, we're going to go and create an object for it. So let me go and replace data with photos, and I'll show you exactly what I mean. Hopefully, if I did everything right, we will show our photos, and it may be different with yours. I changed up some of my information in my endpoint, but if you see images on there and like text at the bottom, then you've done it correctly. Does anyone have any issues? Does anyone have any issues? All right, yeah.
Can you show the bottom of your code? I think I missed some lines under the append child. There we go.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And does anyone have any questions in regards to anything that I covered? I know I went a little bit fast. And if you guys want to take this like the next step further, kind of give like user controls, such as maybe creating like a drop-down menu, or creating like a text input where users can enter in their own date. So they would be able to enter their own date and kind of like change up the website on their own. Would you guys actually like me to kind of run through that? I kind of finished up a little bit early.
Yeah, that sounds kind of cool.
All right. So let me go and let's see. All right, let's go ahead and head over to our index real quick. I'm gonna go and create a text input. So we're gonna do .column -12, and then we're gonna go and do input. And it's gonna take me a while to jog my memory because it's been a while since I worked in vanilla JavaScript. So I'm gonna go and give this an ID of D equals, we'll just call it input. And then I'm gonna go and add a button underneath. I'm gonna call it search. And I'll just give this one an ID of BTN. So now we're gonna go up here, go and grab our items. So I got do BTN for this one. And then let's go and do input. And I'm going to go and change this up real quick. So I'm going to actually delete endpoint, and I'm just going to take the string off of the variable. And I'm going to go and change it up. I'm going to go and remove the double quotes, and I'm going to go and put I forgot what these are called, but we're going to do a what's it called?
Oh, with like the $sign and the
Yeah, we're basically going to try to go and put the information inside.
what's it called, Jacob? Interpolation or
Interpolation.
A template literal is what you'll be using here.
template literal, yeah.
So we'll go and do that. So we're going to remove the date here. I'm going to put our money sign right there. And then we're going to do input dot value. Actually, yeah, the dot value. And for the type, I'm going to go and take this. I'm going to go and create a, so it's going to be BTN dot event, add event listener dot click. And basically what we want to do is that on click, as soon as I click the search button, then we want to go ahead and generate everything. So let's see if it works, because it should run. So let me look at the format real quick. So it's gonna be year, month, date. So let's do 2020 dash, let's do 8th of August, and let's do the 12th. Hey, what do you know? It worked. But yeah, that's how you can have user-based stuff, and then I can go ahead and change up this information real quick. So let's do first. Actually, oh no, is that information the same? If I change the year. I feel like I'm doing something wrong here. Oh, it is generating, but we aren't clearing it out.
I was gonna say that just now. Good catch, good catch.
Thanks. Like I said, it's been a while since I worked with vanilla JavaScript. I'm so used to Angular doing all this for me. So on this click, we're going to take our data inject, and we're going to do inner HTML equal blank. So basically, we're going to clear it out as soon as we change it. So now if we go and run that again, so 2020 dash C08 dash 12. So now that we have that, display your information and go back a couple of years. Go to 2014. So now if we do that, now we have new information. So I think we did. Use text. Yeah, it should be clearing out. But yeah, that's kind of how you can have user-based stuff. Or if you want like your information, like that's one from the API to be from now. If I remember correct, or if I remember how to do it, I know that we can pull today's date and then format it to fit how they want it in the API. So like say if like, oh, what's today's images from the NASA rovers? Go hop on the site and I'll show you what happened today. But yeah, there's a lot of possibilities with this, and it's really fun to kind of play with these APIs, as they can make you can really make your website a lot more livelier. But yeah, did anybody want to go over anything else? Anybody have any questions in regards to the lecture?
So I'm getting an error on mine. I don't know if I can share my screen and figure out what I did wrong.
Sure, go and share your screen.
So
In promise, reference error. See, go and scroll up. Response not okay. You said data to photos. Let's see. Promise reference error. So it's happening at display data. I wonder, line 27. Name. Oh, go to your you have a different variable name for your image column. So go and copy your variable from the let. So oh, let me go ahead and grab the pen. Let me go ahead and annotate real quick. Yeah. Do you see with those underlines?
yeah.
So take the img call from the let variable.
And just change it to.
Yeah, and go and fix that, and we'll see if that helps. Go ahead and refresh your page real quick. Oh, all right, line 48. 48. Text column, camera type.
Oh, that's that same thing. So camera, I used camel, so it's camel code. Okay, so there we go. It was just some typos on my part.
Is it did anyone else need any help?
Thank you.
You're welcome, man. And did you want me to go back over the text input, how to allow users to kind of change up the URL or the API call?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm well, I guess I'll share my screen again. Oh, I'm still sharing. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yeah, you're still sharing your screen.
Okay, so I think I got the input correct. I think I've botched the button.
Oh, go on, double click on that, on the type.
On the type.
Yeah. And then just type out capital B and then just do button. Or B button with a capital B.
Oh. Okay.
There you go. And then go and remove that that equal sign and yeah, go and remove this. And go to the end real quick, like the end of the thing, like to the arrow.
Okay.
Go and hit backspace and then add it back.
Hit the backspace and do what?
Then add it back. Because we need the other end of the.
Okay. All right.
And then inside you can put whatever text you'd like. I just put search.
Okay.
All right, and then go back to your JavaScript. And so now.
And
next part.
oops. So I'd gotten some of it and then I just commented it out.
I'll go and share my screen. I'll go ahead and show you what I did.
Okay.
So basically what I did was I copied our function. Well, I deleted it, and then you have the btn on click function, right? Like this thing, or
Yes, I have that.
okay. So on the inside, first things first, go and call data inject, because what we're gonna do is we're gonna go and clear out every time we hit the search button.
Mhm.
So do that, enter HTML equal to blank, and then that fetch function, go and place it in here. But what we did is I removed API endpoint variable from in there, because instead what I want to do is I want to take that whole string that's in.
So I'm taking the, let's see, fetch function API name. I'm looking for that. Oh, there it is. Okay. So I'm taking that and I'm putting it down here and I'm removing, you said API endpoint?
Yeah, API endpoint. And what we're going to do instead is we're going to go and take this, well, we're going to take the inside of the string, go and copy that, and I'll go and run through again real quick.
Inside of the string. So from
Like
everything. Okay.
So we're going to take that and I'm going to go and delete
Okay.
this real quick. And then we're going to go and do interpolation. So we're going to use the like those Angel.
The
you
little
remember
tildes or whatever they're called.
the tills, right? Yeah. So we'll go and use those tills. And then we're going to go and put your text in there. And then in there, we're going to go and take the date. So it'll be 2026-3, or I'm not sure what how your date is formatted. So we're going to go and delete that. We're going to do this dollar sign, and then we're going to do the curly brackets.
So I'm going to change the date. Leave the equal sign there, right? Just remove the date.
Yeah, just go and remove the date.
Dollar sign. Curly brackets.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then inside, we're going to go and input a value. And so basically what's happening is as soon as we press the button, it's going to grab the value of the input field, and then it's going to insert it into the URL. So now, if you enter the correct format of the thing, and let me go ahead and put it on mine real quick. I'm going to put it as a placeholder, so we have that. It goes up. Actually, I'll just go placeholder, and it's going to go like this. Year, like 4-digit year, 2-digit month, and then 2-digit day. So for the sake, I'll do like 2020 dash. Go with March. We'll go with 1st. So now we have that. Now we have our images showing up. And if I were to change the date, let's say 2021. It'll clear it out and it'll populate with new images.
Okay, what's the last line of that button event? I think
Oh no, that's about it.
Earth date equals input value. So I've got something wrong there. Is it just I'm not doing a close?
Go ahead and share your screen. Let me go and look to see if we got some comments. Oh, to this date. I'll go and take a look at that.
Seems to be this line. I think I'm not able to see something on your screen.
Oh, let's see. I think there might have been something extra added. Go ahead and do an Alt-Z real quick.
I
Do
think
a
you're
what?
just missing the ending bracket, the ending bracket to the fetch function. At the very, oh, is it there?
Yeah, I think so.
Uh,
Oh, oh, on yours, do I actually not need this line 60?
Oh no, you don't need that. You don't need that. Like 60, it should already be in there.
Okay.
So it should be like that. Okay, there we go. And so go ahead and enter a random date.
There we go.
I got a suggestion from someone to enter a specific date. And nothing shows up. If you go outside the date of like how long the rovers have been on NASA, you won't get returning data. But if you're creating a web application, you create an element, or you create a function that would generate elements saying that, hey, this does not exist. Any other questions? Like, do you guys want to go over the? Oh, there's one thing I want to mention about the fetch function, because it's an async function. If you, let's say that I create a variable. Actually, I'm going to share my screen real quick. If we were to, let's say, get, I want to call it thing, and if we try to capture the data in thing, let's see. So let thing equal response dot JSON. The thing is that I don't think you'll be able to see the information outside of it because it's a independent function. Because as the computer is reading through this, the thing never gets described. Yeah, because now it shows up as undefined. That's because the fetch
The scope, right?
Yeah, it's this. Well, yeah, it's actually. Oh, obviously it's not defined because I have it because the function doesn't activate. But the main idea I was trying to go at is that if you're running like any functions, or if you want to run anything with the data, you do have to run it inside the async function, or within the async function, just to make sure all the information, because sometimes you won't get the exact information. You either get like a promise or undefined. But other than that, that's about it for my session.
So what's the difference between a regular function and an async function?
Yeah, because we were using them. Yeah, we were using them with the regular function. It was a regular function when we did our fetches.
The main difference between them, they're actually doing and handling the exact same logic. The reason why he's using an async in a way is because he's separating the dot thens. Okay, so what we would typically see as a dot then fetch after the fetch URL, and at that point is where we would do the response and then the JSON, right? The reason why he's doing an async and await is because the method, it needs to wait for the actual response to get back before the promise can finish. So he just separated it and did it a little bit differently. After the response.json, as you can see on line number 22, after that is where we would have our other dot then, that after the promise finished, it would do some stuff. But all this does is, instead of having the dot then, it's forcing it to wait until the response is finished, and then it does whatever it needs to do, is the main difference.
What's the purpose of doing that then, I guess is the question, versus the other doing it with the dot then?
At that point, it's just preference.
Oh, okay.
At that point, because they handle and they do the exact same thing.
Right. So, I mean, basically, you could create this with dot then without using the if array is array and all that stuff.
Yep, you could do it with
okay.
the dot then. You could do it with the dot then, doing the response, and then after the dot then, if you wanted to have that condition, you could add that condition, but it would be after. Let me annotate real quick. It would be after this one. So after this is where you would actually include the dot then, and then inside of there, after you get the JSON data, is where you would check the if statement for JSON data.photos to check to see if that's an array. Is the only difference.
Okay. Now I got a question for Matthew. On line 25, this if array is this a method right here? Like is array? What is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So it's literally checking to see if the data that's coming back is the data type of array.
Oh, okay. So array is the data type, and then is array is checking if it is an array. Is that how that's being used there?
Right. So it's like an object, right? So the array is like an object, and it has built-in methods. So like how we were doing, array.map, the dot prototypes and stuff like that.
Right,
so that's all it is. So it's just a built-in method that literally just checks for if the data type is an array. That actually kind of ties back into our previous lesson that we were doing with the clock. You know how you guys are getting not a number? There's actually something that called isNaN. And if you use isNaN, it literally checks to see if it's not a number, if it's NaN.
And that way you
that's
can use
doing,
it.
yeah. So
Okay.
that's doing the same thing. It's literally just checking to see if it's an array.